This presentation is brought to you by the Pacific Division Feeding Leadership. Several housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded and it will be posted tonight on YouTube. The link is in the email that you received earlier. You should also enter your own hours for this meeting at Volunteer Connection. Your mic and camera have been disabled. If you'd like your questions to be answered by our expert panelist, please enter them in the Q&A. The chat scrolls too fast and we won't be able to catch all the questions. Feel free to use the chat to say hi to each other. The Q&A function is to the left of people and to the right of chat on the very top panel. And please welcome back Julia, the subject matter expert on feeding. Julia, please take it away.
All right, thank you. I want to apologize for last week not being able to teach the class. Somehow the PowerPoint got corrupted and it totally disappeared on me. And I want to be very clear, this is no reflection on Mary Prather, who set up this feedings opportunity for everybody. She's our divisional feeding lead, and she is looking for a co-lead or someone to help her manage the monthly meetings. If anybody's interested in stepping up and wanting to do that, I know she'd be thrilled to have more support in that. So if you want to consider doing that, please let her know. So, whoops. Okay, so I'm going to kind of just, some of this may be a repeat of what you've already heard, but I want to make sure that it's very clear in your minds. So one of the misconceptions about kitchens are just used in massive responses. People think it has to be something big like Katrina or Sandy, and that is not the case. Kitchens have more workers, so it's easier to handle the workload. That's not the case either. Kitchen work is more fun as you don't have to work with the clients. Well, yes, it is fun, but yes, you do work with the clients. And IRV drivers set their own schedules and then they're off. That is not true. IRV drivers work 12 and 14-hour days and sadly sometimes longer than that. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what is a kitchen? This picture right here is a Baptist kitchen. As you can see, all those pallets are labeled out by what vehicle is going to pull up and pick those up. You may end up with another, we have a group called BRG, or Mercy Chefs may do something similar to this. So it just depends on what type of a kitchen you're working with. So we have multiple feeding vendors that we work with that may have their own kitchen either in a building or out in a parking lot like this. Next slide.
Julia, before you go to next slide, can you tell us what is BRG?
I don't know what it stands for, but it's a barbecue type vendor that has mobile outdoor grills that they cook for us, and they're based out of Louisiana area. And so I don't know what the BRG stands for, sadly, but it's a mobile kitchen that has one of the big mobile outdoor grills, or have multiples of those. And so we'll partner with them sometimes, and they'll come and set up with our things. So a kitchen is where the food is prepared by orders and placed. It may be like one of our partner kitchens or whatever the case may be. Food is distributed in various sites by various different methods. It is a small headquarters a lot of times. It's a shared space with our partners. Sometimes we're working right there in that kitchen alongside them. Other times we're just driving in, picking up the meals in those Cambros, those little red boxes as you see in the picture. And sometimes we're right there working alongside them. It's an information center in a fixed feeding location. A lot of times we will partner with a group that actually has a drive-through that they're feeding as we're picking up our meals on the other side and going out and distributing to do either community feeding or shelter feeding. So I always want to find out all the information that comes and goes in that location. It's a cleanup area where we can empty our Cambros and clean our Cambros and dump our trash at the end of a day. It's a staging area for feeding activities within an assigned area. We may have 4 or 5 kitchens depending on the size of an operation. And it's a parking lot and a repair center for our vehicles. We have a group called National Fleet Operations, NFO as they're normally called, and they want to check our ERS, our emergency vehicles, every 3 days to make sure tire pressure's up, that they got enough depth, everything's running properly to keep your vehicle on the move. And they are in an old classic looking ERV, and that's their operation that has all their tools and all their things. A kitchen is a communication hub. Listen a lot, share a lot. That's the information you're going to pick up and give back to those sites. Next slide. Services supplied by feeding teams. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you, and we're looking for supervisors. A lot of people are afraid of stepping up and becoming a feeding supervisor because they said, "Well, feeding's so complicated, and there's so many things you have to do." But once you learn all these things, it's easier. It becomes second nature to you, and you always have support. You always can find a phone a friend to support you. So you will do mobile feeding to clients. We can do fixed feeding at a fixed site, or have, like I said, one of the kitchens where people can actually drive through and pick up meals. We deliver food to shelters or partner agencies. Sometimes they ask us to feed at the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center. We all have drive-through feeding. It's an information to the community, and it's posted on our national shelter site where everybody knows where our feeding sites are. And that's one of the legs of the web EOC now, where you can find out um, where a shelter is, where a feeding site is, where a DES site is. So those are some of the things that people can find out about what a feeding team is and where they're at. And then we can also refer all these people for damage assessment, mental health, health services, and all the other opportunities that people may have a need. So it's always important you take the psychological first aid class so you can be able to listen and read between the lines as they're talking to you on what their needs are, and make sure you take the time to listen and learn and write down information and bring it back to your supervisor. Next slide. Herbs are the eyes and ears of the community. Information comes back to the headquarters from the herbs. Are the services restored? Some areas may not have power yet, or they don't. Are you able to get to those sites? What kind of help are they needed? And we speak an alphabet soup. So DHS is Disaster Health Services, DES is Emergency Supplies, and DSC is Disaster Spiritual Care. Is that needed in that area? What are the needs of that community? You may be talking to people as you're handing out the meals and find out there's a senior couple that are not mobile that you need to actually put the meals in a bag and take them up to their door. You are the gathering of the information when you're out in those vehicles, and you may be the, as the supervisor, the one that they come back and tell the information to where you can uh, gather all that information together to see how we can better support the community and that disaster. Next slide. So this is typically the reporting of a shelter or a kitchen site. um, I did not create this particular slide because I put the loadmaster yard supervisor as a supervisor alongside. The herb drivers are the only ones that are SAs, because all those sites are working at a supervisory level. But you always have your feeding lead at headquarters that will be your main person that giving you the information and the information you need. Next slide. So this is how our day in the kitchen goes, or even just as you're driving there. There's an early morning meeting with your feeding team. Then they load their meals, and then they deal with all the people and the planning of where they're going to go and what they're going to do. Make sure that their vehicle, that they stop by the NFO team, that the vehicle has been checked out, everything's running properly, you're fueled up, you're ready to go. You clean your vehicle and you restock your vehicle, and then you work with any partners that we may have to see what kind of needs they have or what requests they have. Okay, next slide. So here's the headquarters reporting. So you have your AD of operations, ops, that goes to your mass care chief, and that goes down to your feeding lead. So they all have supervisors. Just follow up the chain. Always follow your chain of command on the concerns and issues that you have or information that you may gather out in the field. You may be asked to, as a supervisor, can you please let your mass care chief know? Can you please let the feeding lead know? I'm busy doing this, that, or whatever. So you will have opportunity a lot of times to chat with these people and know who these folks are. Next slide. Okay, mandatory early morning meetings. You always want to make sure everybody signs in every morning, check the news and what's going on and the weather. We ground our vehicles if there's going to be ice, and especially if it's highly windy. I want to warn you guys, it's highly windy here right now, even though it's pretty and sunny. But I've already been bumped off the internet twice before this meeting started, so I hope it doesn't do it again, but I'll come back quickly if I do. But always check your weather. The herbs are top heavy and they can tip over in high winds, so we have to ground the vehicles then. So we want to make sure we are routing and getting the crew in the right places and making any changes we need to do. We need to be concerned about our menus and our serving portions. Maybe we'll find out that we have a huge Muslim population that we have to make sure we don't serve pork to that community. It's always good to gather any information you can. Communication and documentations are the strengths of what you're going to accomplish as a supervisor, as a Red Crosser. And so you always want, I'd rather be over informed than under informed. And of course, safety is always a priority. Safety of you and your coworkers and our clients. Drivers don't walk between the vehicles. We report items that need to be fixed. And if the ERV has problems or concerns, it needs to be reported in and reassigned. Sometimes we have vehicles as a backup because we may have a vehicle that may have to go into the shop for a day or two. A new ERV number is reported to the yard dog and the loadmaster so they know what to do to help support that team. The drivers and crew stock their own non food items such as your clamshells, your gloves, your cutlery, anything like that you need. Your t shirt bags, as they call them. Basically, it's those little plastic bags from Walmart that you may put a couple meals in one bag. And with the vehicle, so you want to make sure that your food is loaded properly, that you're there to make sure you get the right load. You may be the person's making sure all this is accomplished by being the ERV coordinator. Next slide. So loading the meals. A load master and a kitchen loader will set up your pallets and with all your meal needs. You can see on the white papers on those pallets, it's got an ERV number. You always put your first vehicle going the furthest away in line first, and they all line up in there. Do not remove any of your supplies from those pallets until everything is on there that you need, because they may be still loading those. But your load master will be out there saying, okay, it's ready to load, and they'll help you load it. The ERVs line up the furthest distance away, and there's always two people. I know everybody thinks, oh, I can muscle this, but I'm at the age of my life where it's that you play hard part, and now you're in the pay hard. I'm in the pay hard part of life. So I probably it lifted too many Cambros early on by myself, thinking I could muscle them, and now my back and my legs are saying you shouldn't have done that. So always protect your body, please, because we need you, and we need to make sure you're and not injured. And it's always about safety. Please, no injuries and protect your back. Next slide, please. People and planning. So orientations on new people and new arrivals are always important. Monitor calls for assistance on the road. If somebody calls in and there's a concern with an ERV driver, you may be the one that's answering all those phone calls as a supervisor. You'll have meetings at headquarters, and then they will have a meeting with your team to determine. Everybody has meetings, so it comes from the top on down to where all the information gets to the right people. The information comes down from above, and it goes from down below for the boots on the ground people back up. Look at the next few days staffing. Are you doing okay on staffing? Do you need to talk to your manager and say, hey, I think we're going to run low on staff? It can take you 3 to 5 days to get a new team in. So if it looks like you're going to need more people soon, turn in your staffing request. And there is a form on OneSource to do that, and they're pretty easy to fill out. Always make sure you put the what you truly need for them. If it's an ERV driver, you need to state that it's an ERV driver. It's if it's something else, then you need to put that in there. So when they put that request on the door, which is our giant spreadsheet of who we need on a disaster, they can say, oh, well, do you qualify because it asked for this or that? If it's going to be an admin in the kitchen area or with the feeding manager, do you have the strong computer skills that they need? If not, you probably shouldn't take that role. Look at long-term staffing. How long is this going to go? Are you going to do okay? Are there people willing to extend? Send out extra volunteers to help take out line and help serve. Sometimes it's always good to find event-based volunteers that we can recruit and say, hey, this is a great job. It is. I think it's the funnest job of the Red Cross is to ride around the herb and serve people because I always look forward to seeing you there. It's a great opportunity to engage event-based volunteers. And sometimes, depending on your meals, you really need a third person if you got a lot of meals or a complicated meal to help serve those. So you also want to adjust your loads accordingly to the amount of needs. So you want to collect your numbers. So if you're the ERG coordinator or the person that's working in the headquarters as the admin, you want to gather those numbers and how many meals. We used to count dinner from the night before and then breakfast and lunch. Now it's same day count. So at the end of the day, those numbers get turned in to you as a supervisor or someone else that it gets turned into, and then they will report that in the WebEOC, and we'll get to that later on down in the training here. Um, make sure numbers are important. That's how we show what we've done, how many meals we've served, how many people we've reached. Always want to talk to the drivers and crews as they come back. What were some of the concerns? Did they see some water over the roads? Was it accessible in a tornado situation? Are there down trees and things that they need to be concerned about? Um, we have a lot of problems that we have had in the past. I lost 12 windows in earth in Hurricane Ida in Florida, and so we had to keep replacing the windows. So you'll always want to catch up with your paperwork. And again, as a supervisor, you need to be taking notes on the people you're working with. And hopefully somebody's assigned you who all you will be supervising and who you'll be writing evals for. In a feeding situation, a lot of times the jobs all lap over. So it's always good to have the manager assign you a list of 5 or 6 people that you'll be writing evals for. And then if Joe or Mary is working with them more than you are, they can give you notes to be able to help to write their eval. So you want to work as a team, but everybody deserves an eval. That's our paycheck at the end of the thing. Other than the hug we get from our clients, that's our paycheck in a disaster is the evals to say, you did great here. Let's see you work on this to improve. If you don't get all excellence, that's okay because nobody's perfect. The object of an eval is to show you what you did really well and what you need to work on to improve. And we all need to improve. And we all learn something on every deployment. Next slide, please. Vehicle care and communication. Arrange your repairs for ERVs or box trucks. So if you're the ERV coordinator, then you're going to have to work with that. And if they say this is having a problem and we can't get this fixed, that ERV may have to go into the shop. And if we have box trucks that we're using for storage or for, uh, sometimes we use the box trucks to back up the ERVs depending. So always want to check for any kind of damage. And if you do have a situation, please report it right away to your supervisor. There's a form either in the visor or in the pocket behind your seat to fill out to write up an accident report if you've had some kind of or whatever situation has happened to your vehicle. And again, we're always talking about mental health, health services, spiritual care. A lot of times they will follow behind a nerve and talk to the volunteers or to the clients as you're feeding them and just kind of seeing the pulse of what's going up out there in the communication. And if you're working with the Baptist Relief, the blue hat is the guy in charge. So that's the one you want to bring all your information back to that has any questions about what's going on. And if it looks like it's kind of winding down, you see that the need isn't as strong there, you need to let someone know, or someone may be letting you know that maybe we need to either cut that route out or cut the amount of meals back because not as many people are taking. You could have been serving 300 meals at first, but now the power's coming back on, they've gotten their water back. And so the need is not as strong, and it may be just convenience feeding. So we always want to make sure we're staying on top of um, how many meals we truly need so we aren't throwing meals away. Next slide. Clean and restock. We're always cleaning and always restocking. With feeding, you have to be clean, clean, clean. Change gloves multiple times, multiple times. One pair of gloves all day long is not going to protect anybody. So dispose of leftover food, and sometimes we will find homeless shelters or other sites that we can give the food to if they have it. If not, it has to be double bagged and put in a dumpster, hopefully back at your kitchen site or wherever your landing site is when you come back. You always want to clean and disinfect your vehicle. If you need to ask for a cleanup kit from the DES team, so you've got something to clean your vehicle, it's okay to ask that. So you may be the supervisor and say, hey, we have 10 ERVs on this job and I need 10 cleanup kits from DES so we can clean these vehicles. You want to break down and recycle all the cardboard so it doesn't overfill your dumpster on a regular basis. You may need to work with the um, team that comes and empties the dumpster and look at, oh, wait, we were only having to pick up our garbage once a week. Maybe we need to go to 2 or 3 times a week, looking at the amount of garbage that you go through. Always make sure the vehicles are refueled every day. Never drive around with less than 3/4 of a tank. And 90% of our ERVs are all diesel. So please, if you accidentally put gas in the diesel, do not start the engine. It will be a difference between a $600 fix and a $6,000 to $10,000 repair. So if you mistakenly put in gas instead of diesel, don't start the vehicle. And I know a lot of people think, well, the green nozzle is diesel. Some gas stations have green and it isn't diesel. So make sure you are watching and looking for that. Always make sure your vehicle is stocked with all the supplies you need, your gloves, snacks, clamshells, cutlery. You may be the person that has to make sure these people are stocking up on everything that they need. You want to check your tires and make sure that they're going well every day, and check in with the ERV coordinator if you're the ERV coordinator or if you're working alongside that ERV coordinator. Next slide. Working with partners. Treat all our partners with respect and establish who orders the food, who picks the menu, end of the day or order, and what time of day do they get those orders, and when you add if you needed to add more meals, and the number of meals for the next day. Get partners out on the earth if they have the opportunity. Sometimes they don't even know what happens with the food once they've done it. It's okay to ask them if they'd like to do a third, as long as you've got that third seat for them to ride along to see how that goes, and they can watch and see where their food is if they're cooking goes to. But it's always, if there's any concern with the food, please don't take it up with the vendor, with the partner. Bring it back to the supervisor, or they may be bringing, the drivers may be bringing that information back to you to give to your manager to make sure they're the ones talking to the partner so they can straighten it out. I've had some people be rather short and rude with some of our vendors, and that's disrespectful, and we don't want to see that kind of thing happen. They're doing what they can to support us, and that's what we want, is continued support. Next slide. So feeding opportunities. So there are many things you can do as a feeding supervisor, and if you want to start out small, learning as a to provide the meals and the snacks for the sound the alarm event. You can order the meals, pick up the meals, stage it on a table like this, and serve it for the volunteers and the partner agencies that we use to help us install the smoke alarms. There are some volunteer meetings that we may need feeding at, and support with that. Order the food, pick up the food, serve the food to people. We have training meetings to do the same thing. We used to do a lot of search and rescue canteening. And when they're doing a search and rescue event, we would bring our ERV out to the field and provide coffee and water and snacks for them. And sometimes, depending, it may be meals. We also used to contact canteen for firefighters and first responders, police and fire in a overextended DAC call or a long-term DAC call situation. So there are plenty of opportunities as a feeding supervisor to start out slow and small, to get in to see how much you really like and enjoy it, and then you can grow from there if you choose to. Next slide. So this is the Web EOC mission tracker. A lot of people are afraid of Web EOC. This is probably the easiest and simplest program we have ever found and developed. I'm very frustrated when I took this picture because it's not easy to take pictures of these things. It cut off part of the information when I put it. It's in the picture, but it won't go on the screen. So it'll say off to the side that it's a feeding mission. This is a request, and then it'll ask who. These are all DES, by the way. And then you can put the priority, the time they want it done, and that, and the date and everything. So when you look at that, you may be working. You have to have permission to use the mission tracker. As a supervisor, if you're working in headquarters with a feeding manager, they may ask you to take that permission and manage the mission tracker, and you would write out the missions for them so they would know, and then discuss with them, this is what they're wanting at this site. Can we accomplish this? Then you put that in there. In there, next slide, please. Whoops, I left one out. Okay. On that tracker, once you open that up, you can see who the supporter is, so if it's the Red Cross person, and what agencies, because all these partner agencies, churches, emergency managers, all those folks have access to this WebOS EOC mission tracker, and they can ask for meals or DS supplies or whatever they may ask to support that. And you can either accept the mission, and then you can put the time on when you can accomplish that mission. It's all very easy and simple. This particular slide is talking about FDR, feeding and DES reports. So it pops up, and again, you can't see it. You're going to go by the DR, and then by the county and the date, and then you put in there the three things they ask for you out of feeding is how many meals were served, snacks. Fortunately, we don't have to count snacks anymore. If you choose to, you can do that. But it's basically a template of 3 to 5 snacks per person per meal. So that's how they balance out the snack count. But the other thing is shelf stable meals. A lot of times you may be serving shelf stable meals, or it may be given out by DES. If DES is handing out the shelf stable meals, you need to get that count from them and put that in the feeding FDR, because on the DES FDR, there's not a place to put shelf stable meals. So it's really click, 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 just fill in the boxes, and it's not. It replaces the 5266. Have you heard that form before, where we had to turn in daily numbers on how many meals we did? So this is a combination of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner daily by county. So it's a really simple, easy form to use, and you will truly enjoy it. Next slide, please. So SKY reports. Now they've added to this SKY report, if you're a shelter worker, that they add meal counts and meal needs, and they can order and add any specialty meals. Like there's one on here, they need a low sodium meal. The sad part is they can ask for the world. They can need, a soft diet, diabetic, vegetarian, vegan. It's either medically needed or religious needs, and then we always do include vegan and vegetarian. They may ask for it. It may not always easy for you to find those kind of meals, so that may be a project you may have to work on as a feeding supervisor to try and track that meals. Those meals may have to be ordered at a health food store or some other location than the typical vendor you have, because you won't be able to find some of those meals. Some of our vendors are not capable of supporting those kind of things. It's always good to talk to health services folks, because they have options to support you in those special diets too. Because they have uh, like a MCPC card that they can support you in buying special meals that you can't find any other way. So there's always ways to work around those, but this is now the new thing that says Skya, that we can get the amount of meals that they have um, requested for their sites. So next slide, and there is a sandbox and a training on um, one source if you want to look that out. So plan B, there's always a plan B, B, C, or D. So be flexible, ability to change and adapt for plans, be creative, take input from everyone. Sempre gonna be flexible and delegate without interfering. So a successful deployment has all these, and always be thinking about the next plan and the next stage and how you're going to accomplish what you're going to accomplish. Next slide. Thank you very much, folks. Now I'm sure you have 110 questions. Please write, I didn't think, I thought I had my phone number in there. Please write down my email and my phone number, because I want to make sure that if you have any questions or concerns, if you're on a deployment and you need a phone a friend or some kind of help, I want you to feel confident that you've got somebody to talk to make sure you're successful in what you're doing. So I can type my phone number in the chat. And now Yiwei will get us started on questions, because I saw a lot of questions popping up in there.
Thank you so much, Julia. And before we go to questions in the Q&A and comments in the chat, etc., this is the last session of the feeding series. I want to thank all the presenters for presenting, and for Mary for organizing it, and for case support. I do not see those two here. Is there anyone? I don't see anyone else on the feeding leadership team that want to say a few words. Julia, do you want to say a few words before we go to the next part of Q&A?
Please consider being a feeding supervisor, or even going to a manager. We are sadly lacking in this country with nationwide, because our lovely leader Brad made a comment a couple years ago that we weren't feeding anymore. So people quit taking the training and doing that. It's not that we're not feeding, we're not cooking anymore. There's a big difference. So you don't even have to know how to boil water or cook. All you need to do is have basic food safety to be able to support feeding. It's a fun job. It's a great job. Yes, there's a lot of paperwork involved, but if you learn the forms and learn the process, it's a great opportunity to learn and grow. And we've always got people that are willing to be your phone a friend to support you and help you. So we'd like to see more people get a feeding gap and get become a supervisor or a manager. I got 6 requests just last week alone because of all the disasters that's going on. They were calling everybody in the country because we did not have enough leadership. So please consider going into leadership. The other thing I'd like to say is feeding and DS lap over each other so much, drive a lot of the same vehicles. I would suggest get a double gap, get a gap in either sheltering and feeding or feeding and DES, because they all lap over top of each other, and you'll learn a lot about all the different areas and how you can support. And that way you're also more flexible and beneficial to the operation, because you never know what we're going to need and when we're going to need them. So we're going to have a busy season this year. They've already said wildfire season is going to be hot and dry. Hurricane season, expect it to be double what it has in the past. So we're going to need a lot of people stepping up and willing to learn and grow in every area that we're working in. So thank you.
Thank you. Like Julia said, we do need every type of volunteers. Deb suggested that, we get all cross-gapped, whether it's feeding, whether it's sheltering, whether it's DS, whether it's SRT, shelter resident transition. We got a question earlier about how to get gaps or comment, and that the Deb mentioned that national targets the primary gap. And Joe mentioned that the primary gap, you're not able to edit for yourself. You're able to reach out to your disaster workforce engagement team to get your gap switched or added. And if you don't know what trainings you need, please also reach out to your DPX team, your community program, disaster program managers or specialists, or the disaster workforce engagement team. They will be able to share with you what trainings you need and what trainings you're probably still missing. So please reach out to them. Okay, let's go to questions. First one, I think we briefly covered this, Juliet. How do we minimize the overage that we order for meals? And what's the best way to do that when we have overage rather than just throwing away?
It's really difficult when you're first getting started to know where to start and what to do. So you'd always want to make sure you have more than you need than less, because you don't want to run out of meals. So you will over order in the beginning. So we always try to find before we even start going in this direction, who else is out there? Who else can we feed? So we'll go to fire stations, police stations, homeless shelters, women's shelters, whatever kind of site that we can go to, churches that may be independent to see if there's any support that they need from feeding. If we don't, and it's getting close to that time where you've got to toss your food, the only thing we can do is toss it.
Thank you so much. What I'm hearing so far is the field team, the herb team, the feeding team is the eyes and the ears of the headquarters team. So if you're predicting, if you're seeing that you have fewer people that needing food, you will report it to your supervisor and your headquarters team so they can adjust. And you're also going to work with not the field team specifically, but HQ's team is going to work with external relations to see if there's additional partners that might need our support or if there's anyone that we can donate to. Okay, next question. Do we not provide disaster health services during disaster relief operations? And if so, shouldn't we be looking out for that as well when we are out there feeding?
Yes, they're one of the teams that we usually ask to follow along behind us. A lot of times you'll have a vehicle that's going to follow behind you. It's got mental health, health services, and spiritual care all in the same vehicle. And so they'll just follow behind the herb and they'll get out every now and then and stop and chat with the clients as you're serving the meals. And they're the ones that can help answer questions or see what the need is. If you find that if they're not following you and they're busy at start, again, because our biggest concern that's happening because of the whole licensing issue that went on nationally, if it's not a state that has a um, agreement that they can use people from other states, you have to be licensed in that states. And there have been plenty of deployments I've been on where we're desperate for finding health services folks that are not licensed. So we actually have to hire local people that are health services from that state. So they're not always available to be go along beside. But if you hear of a concern of a client that you're serving, please gather that information and bring it back to the headquarters or to your supervisor and give that information. Always get names, addresses, phone numbers. Like I said, more information is better than not enough information.
Thank you so much. Next question. Does the feeding supervisor have to get permission to take a partner on the herb routes? And if so, whom do you get the permission from?
You want to talk to your kitchen manager or your feeding manager first off and say, if we have the opportunity, can we put these people on? And then they'll just say yes or no. I don't know why they would say no unless there's some kind of concern, but that's our way of letting them see what we do and where the food that they cooked for us goes. And that develops them as a stronger partner with us. And it's amazing how excited they get about the fact that the food they cook actually helps somebody because they don't get to see that side of it.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up question. Do we need get clearance from the headquarters or do we need get clearance from the external relations team or public affairs team?
No. And sometimes the public affairs team will follow along behind you, taking pictures as well. So be prepared. Always carry those um, signed uh, waivers for photographs. If you want to take pictures, you cannot take a picture of a client unless it's the back of the client to where we can identify who they are, um, unless you have that signed release. So always carry those in your vehicle. I carry a small tablet of them in my backpack everywhere I go. I had a situation in Florida where this young boy was so traumatized by the disaster he quit talking. And as he came up and was talking to our one of our volunteers that was feeding him, she kept engaging with him and talking. She was a first grade teacher. He came back the next day and said, "Thank you for being here," and gave her flowers. And we all it brought us all to tears. And we got to take pictures of that because she had the sign release. But it was just a blessing. They look forward to you being there. We're giving those folks hope sometimes when that's all that this. So that's why I'm saying riding on the herbs is probably the funnest job you can do, and it is hard sometimes to get herb drivers to do anything else but be on the herbs because they enjoy it, that work.
Thank you for sharing the story. How do you know if there's a need for a supervisor position or manager position within your chapter or region?
Every chapter and region needs them. Each chapter needs a feeding coordinator in that chapter. So if there's feeding situations happen, always go to your DPM or what community DPM, whatever they change the numbers and name alphabet to. But go to your DPM and say, hey, do we have any events that you need support on? Sometimes these folks try to take on the paid staff all the work because the volunteers don't step up. Sometimes we've just got to ask, how can I help? How can I support? And I'm sure they can give you a list of things and opportunities to be able to do that to help.
Thank you. And I also would recommend that you update your volunteer connection with your availabilities to make sure
Yes.
that you check your availability, that you're available locally and also virtually if you only want to deploy, within your region or within the chapter. So then your disaster workforce engagement team can reach out to you. Okay, few other comments in the chat. Let me scroll back. We asked earlier what is BRG, and our lovely, wonderful Timothy shared with us it's BESH Restaurant Group Disaster Solutions. They're a company that provides disaster relief solutions, and they have over 70, I think I clicked on the link earlier, 7,000 vendors or managers that they have. And it surprises me. Well, I shouldn't say surprise me every time that I'm grateful every time that I get to learn something, I get to take away something. Every time that I think I said, oh, I should know this, but that's something that I didn't know before coming to this presentation. I didn't know what BRG is. So thank you so much, Timothy and Deb, for sharing with us. Okay, next question. What are the challenges to supervising a feeding team?
Well, we all have different personalities, but they're part of your family. And when we go to a DR anymore, I consider it a family reunion. And just like my real family, there's family members I look forward to seeing. And there's other ones that it's like, oh, I wish they would have stayed home. Sorry, but that can happen in the DR as well. Everybody has their own personalities, but the biggest thing you've got to be able to do is confront issues. Don't let them get out of control. If you let it go, it gets worse. So there's a great class on Edge called Dealing with Difficult People, and there's another one called Dealing with Difficult Situations. Be brave enough to step up and deal with that. If you don't feel comfortable with that, go to your supervisor and saying, I'm having concerns with so and so. Sometimes people need to know the why of why you're asking them to do something, and other times, and because then it makes more sense. For example, in Hurricane Sandy, they told all the Earths, stay in the two center lanes, don't go in the outside lanes. So they thought, well, the traffic is crazy. It's busy here. Why can't I go? So they moved over to the outside lane and they hit the top of the overpass because all their overpasses are arched. If they would have just told them in the beginning, you can't drive under those because the vehicle will not fit or you'll rip the antenna off the vehicle. So sometimes it helps to tell the people why you want them to do something, and then it's more understandable for what them. And we do have a lot of policies and procedures for reasons that are tried and true, and that's why we try to stick with that. So whether you're in Washington, Louisiana, Maine, or Minnesota, everybody should get the same service the same way.
Thank you. And I do see two hands up. Let me go through a few more comments and then we'll get to the hands. Cynthia made a comment earlier when we were going through dietary restrictions. She mentioned a good practice is to have individual disaster care team, disaster health services team to verify the special meal request that is on Skya so that we can make sure that we accommodate that needs. Let me see. Lots of thank yous. And let's see, let's go to the question. Joanne West Point, you're able to come off mute and share your thoughts. Joanna, if you're talking, we're not able to hear you. Okay, we'll go to John Osmond. Do you want to come off mute and share your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to know, basically when you're a nerd driver, you're always trying to keep contract with your other herbs. But say you're running out and they got a lot of food left over, they can come over to help you out with the way they don't have to throw their food out.
That is a good comment. The herbs do have radios that they can chat back and forth to each other. A lot of people don't know how to use those. It's always good to know, but you can chat with them and say, "Hey, we got way more food than we need. Do you need it?" Or we've had people say, "Hey, I'm running out of food. Can you come over and help support over here?" It's always good too to ask your supervisor or you as a supervisor to give all your drivers a list, and that's why you spreadsheet everything. Give a list of who your staff is that's working on that DR, so everybody's got everybody's phone numbers so they know who to contact.
Thank you. Joanne, are you able to come off mute? Okay, I guess not. And Joanne, if you're not able to come off mute, you can also type your question in the chat. Julia, we have another question. Outside of vegetarian and pork offerings, have there been any other issues or concerns from clients due to the food served?
Anytime we have a large Asian group of folks, they have rice at every meal. So there have been times we've had to buy rice cookers. I found out in San Jose, California, there are more people from Vietnam there than any other country in the world other than Vietnam. So we had to buy rice cookers to be able to support them because they wanted um, rice at every meal because that's part of their culture.
Thank you. And Cynthia, do you want to share with us the new SV course that you're talking about? Let me make you come off mute.
Make me or let me?
I'm gonna make you.
I cannot find it fast enough. I knew you would, but I'm trying to look up the new courses. They were announced this morning. And so if you haven't taken your supervisor courses, there are some reduced hours now involved and some really great content that we are encouraging everybody who hasn't taken them or hasn't taken them in a while, take a look at.
And one of the things everybody focuses on the edge training, but Percipio has some phenomenal classes. You can take leadership tracks that will teach you a lot of stuff about getting organized, how to do Excel, how to be a strong leader, how to develop teams. There are so many great classes on there's like 400 classes on there. So search that out to see and develop yourself as a leader to see what your strengths are and what you can do. I would suggest people there's a great YouTube guy. He actually wrote a book called Strengths Finder, and it helps you to take a test to see what your strengths are and how you can develop those strengths. And you'll be surprised sometimes when people take those that questionnaire to determine what your strengths are. It's like, wow, I didn't realize I was strong in that. Develop those strengths and target those so you can support the rest of your team and your other teammates.
Thank you, Julia, for sharing your tips on Edge and Percivale. And thank you so much, Cynthia, for allowing me to make you speak on here. Okay, I think I see another question. Good question. How do you find Percivale?
It's right next to Edge. So when you're on your page on Volunteer Connection, there's one source, Edge and Percipio are all in that little grouping there. Just click on that and then type in some of the questions or requests you would like to learn more about.
Thank you so much. And I see a comment that Mexican food is not Chipotle when you have a Spanish culture in population. And another comment of gluten-free can be an issue as well as no sugar.
Most definitely, yeah. And vegetarians are not rabbits. They do need protein. So don't just get salads, please. They need protein as well.
Thank you so much. And Cynthia, just putting a link for the curriculums that you need to get your feeding SV gap. We have 10 minutes left. Do we have any questions? I think I read through all the questions, both in the chat and also in the Q&A. Okay. Is there anyone want to come off mute from the sheltering team to share with us your upcoming sessions? If you want to raise your hand and I can unmute you.
I know they've got some great classes planned. Actually, they're confidence builders and workshops. So it adds to what you already have learned or been trained in sheltering. So it gives you that little extra lift to feel confident in doing some of the things that you have to do.
Thank you so much. Cynthia, I see your hand up. Would you like to share with us?
I believe we start next Wednesday right in this time slot. And I believe
Exactly.
Yipe is going to be made to send out some invites to y'all. So it will be posted. And we begin next week. I believe it is Skya.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Yes. So the training will start next week and it will go approximately 8 weeks, pending on disaster relief operations. And it will be the same time, different link, same time, same host, same everything, just a different link. And I will be sending out email later on this week. Another question, is there a link for the Skya sandbox? Julia?
I believe there is. Cynthia might be the better one to ask how to find that. We had just talked about that, but I know there's a training for Skya, and there is part of that is that little feeding section. There's little videos on that, but I think it's on one source that you can look it up on.
Yes, so if you go on one source, if you search Skya, there's a toolbox there that gives you all the links, including the real production side and also the sandbox. So you can enter that. And when you have a sheltering gap, it's automatic access. One thing to remember is you need to remember your user login ID and also your password. Okay, so Cynthia just putting the Skya link on one source. Feeding SV course is on Edge, and there's also a whether Cynthia will do it or I'll do it later in just a second, is there's a link on one source that lists all the training requirements for all the gaps that you can search, whether it's for feeding, whether it's for sheltering, whether it's for service associates or manager or supervisors. There's a link, a document for all types of trainings listed on there. Okay, do we have any other questions? We still have 7 minutes left.
Thank you, Vicki. She put the Skya Sandbox link in there for us as well.
Yes, thank you, Vicki, for inputting the Skya link, the sandbox link. If we don't have any questions, I guess we can conclude early. Thank you so much all for attending this. Please remember to log in your hours on Volunteer Connection. Please also remember to update your availabilities on Volunteer Connection. If you don't know how to update that, please either reach out to me or reach out to your disaster workforce engagement team or your local community disaster program management manager or specialist team. Sorry, it's so long of a word to say a phrase. So your DPX team, your DW team, or me, then we can go ahead and get you situated. Thank you all so much. We will see you next week with a different link, but same time. Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
Julia.
you, guys. Thanks for staying with us, and consider being a supervisor or manager, please.